President Trump has been taking a wrecking ball to USAID, and it's been beautiful, but I knew there were going to be some lawsuits filed and some legal issues arising from that, so I thought I would do a video and kind of go over some of the legal issues that I see coming from this. In fact, just last night, a lawsuit was filed. It was from some of the workers' unions. I think I have the exact names here. The American Foreign Services Association and American Federation of Government Employees. So they filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration last night because of his actions with respect to USAID. So I think some of these issues will be relevant to that, but I'm pretty sure there are going to be more lawsuits coming. So we'll be looking at the constitutional issues and some other pros and cons on both sides of this as we go through this. But I'm sure you've seen some of the crazy stuff USAID has spent money on. I think one of them was $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia. That's just completely insane. I can see why people would be filing lawsuits, though, on why they don't want this stopped, because if USAID isn't there, who's going to train the Serbian workforce on how to use the right pronouns? I mean, without the DEI training, they might actually rely on merit in their workplace, we can't have that now, can we? So clearly we need to get back out there. Let me just give you some of the others in case you haven't heard these. $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. Okay, that is obviously going to be some CIA front, right? Come on. Who thinks for a second they're really paying for tourism in Egypt? We all know they're not, right? That way they can get the money wired to the Middle East. Just some, quickly set up shell company that, anyway. So a lot of really good things. It's stupid. So many dumb things coming from USAID. So let's go ahead and dig into the issues. I thought first we'd start looking at basically the arguments that the libs and the Dems are going to be making against President Trump on why he can't do what he's doing. And then we'll look at the arguments as to why President Trump can do what he's doing. So let's first look at the arguments against what President Trump is doing. So what these people who are filing lawsuits, what they might be arguing. They first could argue that Congress established USAID as an independent agency in 1998, and only Congress can dissolve it. And I think that one is a pretty good argument as far as dissolution. If President Trump were to try to just dissolve it altogether, it was an agency established by Congress, so that I think that's going to be a really tough one if President Trump just tries to dissolve it outright. But so far he hasn't actually done that. And then the next argument that I could see is from the Foreign Affairs Reform and Restructuring Act that removed Trump's authority to reorganize USAID after 1999. Now, to be more specific, that was to remove the president's authority to reorganize USAID after 1999. They gave the president a window. I think that was President Clinton, I believe. But there was a certain window for restructuring USAID. And so when that closed, they can argue that, hey, the president can't do anything now because the window we had to restructure it is closed from that particular act. And then we also have, this is fun reading, by the way. You guys should, if you're ever bored, just look one of these up. And then we also have the 2024 Foreign Operations Appropriations Act that blocks unilateral executive action to eliminate USAID. Now, seriously, when I saw that, I thought, okay, some sneaky lefty in Congress knew that Biden was going to lose, and they shoved that in somewhere because they thought Biden's going to lose. And USAID is a complete sham. It is just rotten to the core. So we want to protect it. So let's stick this in here so that nobody can do anything with it. Congress really needs to read the crap they're signing. Like, I don't know why somebody didn't say no way. Why would we not let the president do something with that? hack of an agency that most people say is a front for the CIA. Unless the CIA was threatening them, and then I can see why they would do it. So basically, we have laws that will stop Trump from cutting waste, but we don't have laws against sending new Teslas to Vietnam. Okay, that's good. Imagine needing permission to not buy something, right? That's Congress. President, you have to waste this money. Now, let's shift over to the arguments that would be in favor of President Trump doing what he's doing, which is where I am, because we need to clean up the federal government. It is a complete mess right now. But the executive has broad foreign policy power. Article 2 from the Constitution grants the president broad control over foreign policy. That's very clear. He is the person in charge of foreign policy for the country. So USAID doing all these things in foreign countries is definitely basically implementing some kind of foreign policy, and that cannot be against the person who's the president of the United States. He's in charge of that. I do really think that the Supreme Court would give a lot of deference to anything that has to do with foreign policy being in the president's sphere and domain. But I know on the other hand, let's say that the CIA doesn't like the foreign policy of the president. They really need a slush fund in the USAID so that they can do the opposite of whatever the president wants, right? So the CIA is going to definitely want this USAID to stay there with all this money so that they can advance tourism in Egypt. Now, another possible argument that I think could be made in favor of this action is that actually USAID was, the original creation of that was by John F. Kennedy in 1961. So that could give the president a claim to reorganize or even dissolve it. Now, I think that's a weak argument because other presidents have created agencies that were then followed up by the real creation of the agency by Congress. And so I think it's pretty well established that they don't leave room for the president to go back in and kill it once they've created it. But USAID was originally created through an executive action. So I think maybe there's some room for some kind of argument that maybe when Congress created it, they left some of that power on the table for the president since he had created it in the first place. I think it's a little weak, but hey, I'm trying to cover all my bases. Law school exam. I'm covering all the issues. And another thing I think we could argue in favor of President Trump is USAID is not fully independent. It is under the State Department guidance per the 1998 law. So the 1998 law that was referenced earlier, that did say that it is under the guidance of the State Department, which is clearly under the guidance of the President of the United States. So the President controls the State Department. The State Department controls USAID. So obviously, the President has no control over USAID, right? That's what you would think according to all of the Democrats who've been losing their minds over this USAID stuff. Now, here are more arguments in favor of why President Trump can try to do something with USAID. The President can restructure or neuter it through executive action. And here are some examples. So President Obama, his DACA executive action, reallocated enforcement priorities. It reallocated enforcement priorities by instructing federal agencies, mainly DHS, not to deport certain illegal immigrants who arrived as children. So that was done through an executive action. So if Obama can tell agencies to ignore the law in some cases, why can't Trump tell USAID how to spend or not spend money? If we look at that example from Obama, I feel like that shows that, well, the president can do some serious restructuring. Look at what Obama did. And then that's when all the Democrats will be like, well, they won't want to say anything because if Obama did it, we don't want to say that it's wrong. If he did it, their heads will probably just explode. Now, the left, they love executive action when it comes to ignoring immigration law. We've been living through that for how long now? So they love executive discretion when it comes to ignoring immigration laws. But when it comes to not sending money to a transgender opera in Colombia, well, that's not the kind of executive discretion that we like. It makes a lot of sense to me, doesn't it? Does it make sense to you? No, not at all. There's one other example, President Jimmy Carter, the genius who gave away the Panama Canal. He dissolved the Civil Aeronautics Board, the CAB, and reduced regulatory power through executive orders. And I think that's also an example that we can look to. I don't think it's as good as an example as the Obama DACA executive action which he took. I think that's the better one to say, hey, we're just trying to do some restructuring like Obama did. You guys all love Obama, right? Can President Trump limit USAID's funding? So we have some laws that actually make it hard for the president to not spend money. Isn't that like the government, like making laws so that they have to spend money like a drunken sailor? Maybe that's part of the problem that we're in. But anyway, so let's look at that. Can he limit their funding? While the Impoundment Control Act limits a president's ability to refuse spending, President Trump can delay, reallocate, or shift priorities. So I think that's why it's much better to put in a delay so that he's not saying that I'm refusing the funding. We're still going to have the funding. There's just a delay in it. And then he can reallocate it according to State Department purposes or what they would like to do. He could also try to redirect USAID funds to other programs or to other State Department programs. And he can also refuse to request continued funding for USAID in future budgets. So maybe the president can't stop the funding outright because it would be against the Impoundment Control Act, but he can definitely put it on a serious diet. He can send the money somewhere else, and they cannot allocate any money in the future for it. So it's going to be short-lived. I mean, even if they can have to keep the money going there and then try to reallocate it, they can put this thing on a serious diet before the next budget is allocated and passed by Congress. Another action that President Trump, I think, could try to take is to merge USAID into the State Department. Because the 1998 law clearly set USAID as being under the guidance of the State Department, I think it's arguable that that kind of restructuring through the executive, this is an agency under the executive branch, can be done because it was already under the guidance of the State Department. That seems to make sense to me, but I'm sure people on the left would have no idea why that makes sense. So Marco Rubio, as the Secretary of State, he can appoint new leaders for USAID, which of course would be huge because the new leaders would be able to affect changes and do things that weren't insane. I think right now Rubio said that he is the acting head of USAID and he has someone helping him on the ground at the agency doing things. They could also say that all foreign aid decisions must align with State Department policy, and President Trump can direct which programs are prioritized. So they can definitely really latch down and get a handle on what's going on. And I feel like that's arguably going to be fine for the president to do for this agency, which is under the executive branch. Now, I think it was just today I saw in the headlines that I think there were 10,000 workers in the workforce of USAID, and I believe they put all of them on leave but 294. That was part of my headlines video, if you want to check it out. But yeah, so that was huge. That was that just happened today, and I don't know that they really need to fire them. I thought, couldn't they have had more fun with this? Couldn't they have said, look, we agree with you guys that we really need to do more DEI training, so your next assignment for all of you who work at USAID is you're going to go on location in Kandahar to do DEI training for the Taliban, and you're going to stay there and live there until they're converted to your ways. And I have a feeling they would have just quit. But anyway, I guess they didn't need to do that. But there was a lawsuit filed by the workers union too. And I think right before I was filming this, I thought that I saw a judge may have put a temporary restraining order on a certain number of the workers not being let go yet. I apologize, I didn't have a chance to, I just saw that, so I might do, if this continues to kind of be, everybody's talking about it, I might do another video next week on it, but I think that may be happening. And it's probably going to be a DC district judge, so of course it's going to happen. They're all super far left, crazy people. So, and hopefully the Trump administration can appeal that and get a good decision. But as long as we've got these DC district court judges, I feel like they're all going to be fighting the president. But you know what? The president is the president, and we cannot have the judges basically be able to stop President Trump from being the president. That's why we elected him, is to do this stuff. So, although the district courts might be nuts, I'm hoping when you get to the appeals court level, they'll start to realize he's the president, folks. President Trump can also issue executive orders to restructure. He can reorganize USAID's internal structure. And I think he's already been doing that if they did get rid of almost 10,000 people. They can shift functions from USAID to the State Department or other agencies. That's not getting rid of USAID, but that's moving some functions from one to the other. Of course, you can fire woke officials and replace them. Absolutely, that's going to be under the executive branch, under the State Department. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, they can can people and put new people in. They can issue new directives redefining USAID's mission to support America First. So telling these people America First, these far lefties, is probably like when somebody pulls out, garlic or a cross in front of Dracula. They're probably going to lose their minds. America First, they'll probably just quit. You won't even need to lay them off, but there we go. Now, even if the courts challenge elimination of USAID, executive orders can reduce its scope, funding, and autonomy. So, from what it looks like, I think that's the approach that President Trump is taking, which is he's not eliminating USAID altogether, because I feel like that probably wouldn't fly because Congress created it. But he can certainly, through executive orders, reduce its scope, funding, how autonomous it is, and just kind of like basically put them in a little box. Now, could anything happen in Congress with respect to USAID? I doubt it, but let's go through here. So Republicans in Congress, they could introduce a bill that folds USAID into the State Department through congressional action, but you're going to have a filibuster in the Senate, and they're going to stop that, so it's not going to go anywhere. But budget cuts can really weaken USAID, for sure. So in the future, not requesting money, having the budget allocations go down, you're basically going to starve it to death. And you can require State Department approval for all USAID projects, for sure, because they've been doing some wacko stuff in there. And so that would really, I think, rein them in. And I feel like that would be within the purview and scope of what the president should be able to do. The filibuster in the Senate could be fun. Do you think Chuck Schumer, when he's up there filibustering, stopping them from getting rid of USAID, would he be up there arguing for, let me get some of these, Chuck Schumer's arguing passionately for $1 million to help disabled people in Tajikistan become climate leaders? That was a real thing that happened. Or maybe he's arguing, hey, we can't get rid of USAID because we need $1.5 million to empower women to adapt to climate change in northern Kenya. See, I have a feeling the Democrats in the Senate, when they filibuster, they're not going to bring any of that stuff up, which is unfortunate because it could be really fun. I wish they would. Okay, so in conclusion, can President Trump dissolve USAID? From my reading and research, I don't think he could dissolve it outright because Congress created it in that 1998 law. So I don't think he could dissolve it like that. But he can starve USAID for funds by controlling budget allocations. I think he can merge it into the State Department because it was under the State Department, according to the 98 law. You can fire woke libtards. Sorry that I put that in there. I think it was late when I was writing this, and I was pissed. So, and then he can also have executive orders restricting USAID's mission. So he can definitely really pull this thing under control, shrink it, and get it down to serious nothingness. Effectively killing it, but not killing it. Oh, and I have that on the slide. He doesn't need to dissolve it, just needs to weaken it, reassign it, and neuter it until it's functionally irrelevant. That sounded better than what I just said. So, as I said when I started this, one lawsuit has been filed, I think last night, by the government workers' unions. I do expect there to be more lawsuits filed against this, and I hope that they lose so that President Trump can continue to clean up the government, because it definitely needs to be cleaned up. And if this is something that continues to be like in the press and important that people are talking about, I might cover follow-on cases. So anyway, you can look forward to that. All right, thank you for watching. Thanks for watching my headlines and my shorts. My short videos, not my shorts, because I'm always sitting behind the desk so you can't see my shorts. Not that I'm wearing shorts, because I'm not wearing shorts. I'm wearing pants. I should stop talking. Anyway, thank you for watching. See you guys later.